Hello, my name is Trent. I'm the person who's organized the upcoming Capitol Reef trip. This video is meant to be a primer for beginners and novices to know how to prepare and what to expect for canyoneering on this trip. However, there is some good general information that everyone will want to pay attention to. I'm recording this on a camera with a microphone that does not have the best quality, so I understand that it's not going to sound super great. I apologize for that, but it's all I got to work with at the moment. I'm going to cover a few things in this video. I'm going to go through a disclaimer. We'll talk about logistics and canyoneering opportunities, common concerns and expectations, gear, what to pack, food, water, clothing, footwear, equipment, etc. I'm not going to cover safety or rappelling techniques on this video. We'll discuss that in person on the trip. By attending this event, you acknowledge, understand, accept, and agree that canyoneering and other outdoor activities can be dangerous and cause serious bodily injury and possibly death. The organizers of this event cannot be held responsible or liable in any way for any actions of any participant, including you. You alone are solely responsible for your own safety and well-being. Neither myself nor anyone leading canyons during this event is a guide, nor are we guiding, nor are we receiving any payment for leading canyons. We are all common adventurers undertaking an activity together and sharing in the inherent risks. Being in charge of your own safety means that you are absolutely encouraged and expected to speak up, say something, or question anyone at any time if you do not feel safe or have concerns or simply just questions. The goal of opening with this statement is not to scare you from participating, but to ensure that you understand that you are participating at your own risk. We will do everything we can to be safe and promote safe practices, but again, you alone are solely responsible for your own safety and well-being. Now that we got the heavy stuff out of the way, let's talk briefly about logistics for this trip as far as canyoneering is concerned. Capitol Reef requires a permit for any canyon we descend, and there are group size limits of either 8 or 12 people depending on which canyons we do. We're going to try and stick to the 12-person canyons to increase our throughput. But spots will need to be allocated in a way that ensures a safe ratio of experienced canyoneers to beginners. Because there are so many entry-level canyoneers on this trip, I've decided to limit canyon leaders to just those I've personally canyoneered with and who I know have the skill set, equipment, and experience to both lead and rescue should the need for a rescue arise. This trip will happen rain or shine. At this point, if we cancel, we can't get our money back, so it's going to go forward no matter what. If it does rain, we won't be able to canyoneer. However, there are many activities and hikes we can do in Capitol Reef that are perfectly safe to do in the rain. And if it does rain, rain in the desert is a spectacularly amazing experience. So it'd be a great trip either way. As of the time I'm recording this, it's too early to know how the weather is going to shape up. However, I am expecting and hoping that it will be great weather to canyoneer. On this trip, there's no additional cost to canyoneer. We want you to come and have fun and not worry about that. There is one potential caveat to that, however. If we happen to damage somebody's rope, that would be a costly replacement, and I don't want any of my canyon leaders to have to bear that alone. So if that does happen, which it is unlikely that it would, but if it did happen, I would be asking everybody to help pitch in. What if you get scared? Well, canyoneering is a very committing activity, and what I mean by that is, with very few exceptions, once you start down a canyon, the only way out of it is through the canyon. If you become afraid, that's okay, but you must conquer that fear and finish the canyon. The problem arises when people get scared and refuse to move, because then we're at risk of being stuck in the canyon. We expect that some people will have moments. If you become claustrophobic, anxious, have a panic attack, freeze up, start crying, you won't be the first and you won't be the last. If that happens to you, we'll take a moment to help you calm down, talk through the fear, and make you feel as comfortable as possible before proceeding. However, we will need you to proceed. I don't want this to stress anybody out or lead to any unnecessary risk-taking. Instead, I want people to understand the nature of canyoneering before committing to the canyon and use this as a motivation to help you overcome any fears that you might experience when we are canyoneering. While canyoneering does involve some tight spaces, nothing we plan to do on this trip is going to be so tight that you will get stuck in. That is not a concern, and you do not need to worry about that. Beginner canyoneers often are anxious about getting wet. While canyon ratings give some indication of the presence of water under normal conditions, conditions can vary. We are planning to descend only Class A canyons on this trip. Class A canyons have little to no water and are generally dry, so you do not need a wetsuit and you will not be swimming in water. No matter the canyon rating, you should always plan for getting your feet wet. We start early in the morning when canyoneering. This is to avoid potential afternoon weather issues. In the Colorado Plateau, storms typically, though not always, hit in the afternoon, and starting early helps mitigate that. We also start early to beat the heat, maximize daylight, and in case our group takes longer than expected to complete the canyon. For this trip, we're planning to do half-day canyons, and we want to be done by lunch, so we're starting early to help facilitate that. Canyon ratings have a time scale that indicate how long it should take an average group to finish the canyon. However, our actual time may be longer or shorter depending on how quickly and efficiently our group moves through the canyon. It's taking longer that is usually the concern because people start running low on energy and food and water, or we start running out of daylight. With groups of 12 and a lot of beginners, we'll probably be on the longer side, but you can help by being efficient. The canyon leader may, for a variety of reasons, need to speed up the group at some point. If you are asked to speed up, please don't take it personally. Sometimes group members will need to be pushed out of their comfort zone in order to speed up. However, we don't want to push anybody into the danger zone. That's not good for you, and that's not good for the group. We're not trying to rush people through the canyon, but we do need to stay on task. So how do we be efficient? Well, when it's your turn to rappel, be ready to go. This means ask your questions, practice with others, learn how your descender works, learn how to rig to the rope while you're waiting for your turn to rappel. There's going to be canyon assistants you can ask questions to and practice with. If you get on rappel and you find you're not quite ready, you're struggling to rig your device to the rope, you may be asked to step off rope and go sort yourself out. Also, when you're waiting your turn to rappel, that's a great time to grab a snack or hydrate. Now, some of you will know what stemming is, and others, this will be a new concept. When the canyon gets narrow enough that you can put your hands and feet on opposite walls, or your back to one wall and your hands and feet on the other, and either climb up or traverse the canyon sideways, this is what we generally call stemming. Stemming is a lot of fun, and we absolutely want you to try it. However, it can wear you out faster than you realize, especially for beginners, so we do want you to pace yourself. Now, we're planning to do half-day canyons, so this should be less of a concern, but I still want you to be aware of this. I will talk more about ethics and leave no trace in person, but there are a couple points I want to make right now. Biological soil crusts, also known as cryptobiotic soil, or crypto for short, are colonies of algae, fungi, and moss that actually form the soil that the plants in the desert depend on. These crusts take decades to form and also decades to recover from one errant footprint. Over the years, huge expanses of crypto have been destroyed by roaming cattle that are not native to the desert, which makes what is left increasingly important to the ecosystem. Because of this, we need to be careful where we step in the desert so we do not destroy these delicate structures. Carving, scratching, painting, or leaving marks on the sandstone or rocks is graffiti. It's illegal. Don't do this. I'm going to go through the minimum pieces of personal equipment required for a beginner to canyoneer. You'll need to borrow, rent, or buy these items to participate. Now, I do not have gear to lend out, nor do I have the bandwidth to coordinate and source gear for dozens of people. So if you need gear or you have gear to lend out, please post about it in the Facebook event and help coordinate together and help each other out. I'm happy to answer gear-related questions, but I just do not have the bandwidth to find gear for people. Let's go through the items that you'll need. A climbing rated helmet, a harness. This happens to be a rock climbing harness, but there are other styles of harness that will work as well. Leather gloves to protect your hands while rappelling. A safety tether. A safety tether is used to secure yourself from a fall. One end will attach to your harness. The other end has a carabiner, which you'll use to clip into a bolt or a piece of webbing at the anchor. You'll need a minimum of 2 locking carabiners, one for your safety tether and one for your descender. You'll need a descender. Now, most people are familiar with an ATC or a figure-8 device from rock climbing. These are used as belay devices when climbing, but can be used as descenders in canyoneering. This is a canyoneering specific descender. This particular model is a critter. Canyoneering specific descenders have arms and legs, which when you are in the middle of rappelling, you can use to wrap the brake strand around to increase friction and control. These climbing style devices do not have that capability. If all you have is access to these devices, that's fine, please bring them. They'll be acceptable for this trip with some qualifications. There may be a few people where we're just not comfortable having them use these devices because they're not familiar with them or we don't feel like they have enough friction. And in that case, we may have them use a canyoneering specific device. This is a canyoneering specific backpack. However, it does kind of look like one of those old JanSport backpacks. If you had one of those, that would be great to bring in a canyon. You don't want to bring your nice stuff because it will get ripped up. The last piece of somewhat required gear is a headlamp. Now, because we're doing half-day canyons, if you don't have one, it should be okay. However, it would be good to have one just in case things run longer than expected, or if you end up doing a canyon later in the day. If you need to rent or purchase gear, here's a list of locations where you can rent or purchase from in either Utah Valley or Salt Lake Valley. As a general rule, do not bring or wear anything into the canyon that you're not okay with getting damaged or destroyed. Canyoneering in sandstone environments is hard on you and it's hard on your gear. While you can buy canyoneering specific equipment, it is recommended to use old gear and old clothing for canyoneering. Thrift stores are a great source to find items. We will be doing warm weather canyoneering on this trip, so shorts and short sleeves are going to be fine, and that's what I'm wearing. Long sleeves and pants will better protect your arms and legs from getting scratched up on the sandstone walls, and they also do offer some sun protection. A jacket should not be necessary for this trip, but you're welcome to bring one. I would advise against bringing a puffy jacket though, because it can get ripped and lose its insulation. A better choice would be to bring a fleece jacket or a lightweight pullover. A hat or sunglasses are great for the approach and exit hikes. However, sunglasses can get damaged. No matter the canyon water rating, you should always expect to get your feet wet when canyoneering. Now, a few people are hearing that thinking, oh, I'll just bring some sandals. No sandals, no chacos. You need to bring closed-toed shoes for this trip. We don't want people stubbing their toes or breaking their toes. And we also don't want people to have the grit from the sand and wet sand on their sandals and the straps causing blisters and abrasion issues. A pair of old shoes will be sufficient for this trip as long as they still have enough tread to grip sandstone. Do not bring rock climbing shoes for this trip. Rock climbing shoes are not appropriate for canyoneering. However, climbing approach shoes, which are different than rock climbing shoes, work great for canyoneering. Climbing approach shoes are basically a shoe with climbing rubber for the sole. Avoid cotton socks because if they get wet, they will hold moisture and become unpleasant. Synthetic socks like polyester or nylon are a better choice. However, wool socks are the best because they wick moisture away from your feet, and even when completely soaked, they will feel much drier and more comfortable than other socks would. Neoprene socks are not appropriate for this trip. They're going to be too hot, so don't bring them. We're planning to do half-day canyons and start in the morning, so considering what you need for the canyon and not for the whole camping trip, this is what you should plan on. For breakfast, fast, even no-cook options that can be eaten quickly or even on the approach hike are best because, again, we're starting early. Snacks. Pre-packaged food items tend to be best because they are sealed and don't require waterproofing. Again, we're not doing canyons that we're going to get wet in, so this shouldn't be a big issue. For lunch, we're planning to be out of the canyon and back at camp, so you don't necessarily need to pack for lunch, but you can if you want. Either way, you should pack enough food and water to cope if things run longer than expected. The amount of water is going to be unique to each person. However, for these short half-day canyons, 2 liters is probably about enough. Now, you can bring more, but I wouldn't go over 3 liters. And I know some of you are going to say, well, I could probably get by with less. I would rather have us not run out of water, so stick to about 2 liters. You can bring a camelback or a bladder on this trip. However, I've had them fail on other canyoneering trips in the past. Hard-sided containers are preferred, like a Nalgene or even Gatorade or Powerade bottles work really great. I would recommend against bringing hydro flasks or other insulated bottles. They are heavy and they will probably get dented. So that I know that you actually reviewed this content, I would appreciate it if you would send me a private message letting me know what your favorite candy bar is.